Right. It's 2 years since the federal election delivered a hung parliament, and ever since the minority Gillard government formed 17 days later, the coalition has claimed it was born of a carbon tax lie. Despite the coalition's anti-carbon tax campaign, the Gillard government's fortunes have actually improved since the introduction of the measure, if you believe the polls. But the coalition's plugging away. Every day it's tabling electricity bills in Parliament and blaming them on the tax. A year out from the next election, it's reasonable to ask how a coalition government would cut greenhouse gas emissions at the same time as slashing power prices. Greg Hunt is the opposition climate spokesman, and he's speaking to political editor Chris Uhlmann in our Parliament House studio.
Greg Hunt, welcome.
Many thanks and congratulations on the book.
On August 9, Tony Abbott said it's the carbon tax which is putting up everyone's power prices. Is that the whole story?
Well, this year what we're seeing is that the carbon tax is the overwhelming source of power price rises. We have had electricity price rises from a variety of sources in the past, and the carbon tax is adding in Queensland between 80 to 100% of the bills. In Victoria, 11 out of 15%. In the Northern Territory, over 75%. Here in the ACT, over 75%. And in New South Wales, at least 50%. So the carbon tax is the single biggest factor in electricity prices going forward, and it's going to continue each year, every year.
Isn't it true
forever.
To say that network infrastructure costs and the renewable energy target are also adding their own fair share? In fact, it's higher than the carbon tax?
Well, what the New South Wales Independent Regulator found in the case of New South Wales, out of an 18% price rise, the carbon tax is 9%, the renewable energy target is 0.3%. So that's 1/60th of the total rise. But around the country, if you then go on to Western Australia, 75% of the price rise this year is coming from the carbon tax. So wherever you look, the carbon tax is driving prices. And by the way, that's what it was meant to do. It's meant to be an electricity tax, and that's how it works.
So power prices will fall under a coalition government. You can guarantee that.
We will take away the carbon tax component, and they will be less by the amount of the carbon tax component.
So if the price rises up 10% under the government, they will fall, and you can guarantee they will fall 10% under coalition government.
Look, what I'm doing is being realistic and guaranteeing that power prices will be less by the amount of the carbon tax than they would otherwise have been. And the tax doesn't stop here. This is just the start. So it begins at $23. It climbs to $37 under the government, and then continues to $350 by 2050. So it's designed to be the biggest source of price increases, which has an impact on families, on seniors, and of course on businesses.
But let's be clear, will the prices come down as much as they go up?
Well, the full amount of the carbon tax should, and in my view, will come off electricity prices, and we will work with the ACCC to make absolutely sure that's what happens.
You have the same renewable energy target as the government. You have the same greenhouse gas emissions cut target of down 5% by 2020. Won't those things both drive electricity prices higher?
Well, in our view, no. What we'll see is that looking at the New South Wales regulator, the renewable energy target component is 1/30th of the carbon tax impact and 1/60th of the general price rise in New South Wales.
The more renewable energy is, the higher that price will go, isn't there? And you're aiming for 20% by 2020?
Well, the projections of the regulator are that it will be incremental at best, and I can only give you the exact figures from the regulator for this year.
And you're saying there are going to be no costs at all from you trying to reach a 5% cut in greenhouse gas emissions by 2020?
Well, no, this is exactly the difference between the two sides. We are proposing to abolish the carbon tax, and we will, and it's not difficult, despite what the government likes to pretend.
And how will you deal with the property that's inherent in the carbon tax? How will you pay for that?
Well, what we're proposing is this. We'll abolish the carbon tax, and we will put in place a system of incentives, of an ability to provide for cleaning up waste coal mine gas, waste landfill gas, energy efficiency, capturing carbon in soil or trees, cleaning up power stations. Wherever the lowest cost emissions reduction can be found, that's where we'll go. And we've set out.
They all come at a cost.
We have
and
set out.
they all must all add to electricity prices, because in the end you also will be driving costs higher. As you try and find cleaner sources of power, you're replacing the older, cheaper, dirtier sources with cleaner, more expensive sources, aren't you? Isn't that the idea?
With great respect, no.
Then how are you doing it?
We've made budgeted commitments which are capped of 300 million, 500 million and 750 million over the 3 years. And that has been funded from within budget savings. That's our task and our duty, and that's not a difficult thing to do because there's been such waste. So we will not be adding to electricity costs. And the entire difference here is the world has two different systems. One is incentives. The other one is an electricity tax. And the findings of today's Climate Commission, when you dig into the detail and you actually read it, are yes to action, but no to a carbon tax around the world.
Will there be a Climate Commission under an Abbott government?
No. We've said that we'll make a series of savings and we will consolidate two departments and we will remove a series of agencies. And there'll be no climate change department either under an Abbott government? Well, we'll actually have a merged Department of Climate and Environment.
So you're actually serious about climate change? You say you've got the same target as the government, you say you believe in climate change, and yet you'd be getting rid of the department that's working towards that?
Well, what we've already seen is that the government has shed hundreds of jobs from a department that they created and then they've cut. Our view is that we can have better results by having a single merged department, and I make no apologies for that. At the moment, we have 11 departments dealing with the carbon tax or related elements, 9 agencies and at least 36 programs. And it is not difficult to make legitimate savings and be more efficient by dealing with this massive Canberra-based bureaucracy.
Your side of politics claims that Julia Gillard is unelectable, yet she shares the same preferred Prime Minister status as Tony Abbott. What's wrong with him?
Well, I think that Tony's doing an extraordinary job. For an opposition leader to be in a position where he has matched the Prime Minister and for a large part of recent months has bested the Prime Minister is an extremely good thing. Our two-party preferred position has been very strong. But we don't take any of that for granted because Australian elections are close and we have to earn the mandate each day, every day, by not only holding the government to account, but by offering an alternative plan,
well, Greg,
which is what we're doing.
We'll have to leave it there. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.